I'm Rachel Edidin.
And I'm Miles Stokes.
And we're the hosts of Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men, a weekly podcast where we walk listeners through the ins, outs, and retcons of our favorite superhero soap opera.
We're also the co-hosts of Rachel and Miles Review the X-Men.
Which you're watching right now.
Where we talk about the X-books that come out each week.
But before we talk about those X-books, I feel like we should talk about your beard, because it's sort of in an odd state right now, and I think we owe viewers an explanation, namely that it is the remains of a Seneca Crane beard.
Yeah, I went to a costume party wedding, and I did the Hunger Games thing with Seneca Crane with his amazing spiral beard.
I'm gonna put up a picture, because it was awesome.
And as it turned out, the makeup-augmented curly bits without the makeup augmentation did not look so hot. So we pared down to the basics. Any listeners slash viewers who based their life stability upon the state of my facial hair, or you, worry
it's
not.
Nice beard.
Within a few days, all will be back to normal. But anyway, that very much aside, let's talk about some comics. Let's start with Uncanny X-Men number 31, written by Brian Michael Bendis, drawn by Chris Bachalo, inked by a whole lot of people, and colored by Bachalo and Antonio Fabela. So, first of all, I want to talk about the cover of this, because it is awesome, and it shows something that I really wanted to see ever since the end of Axis, and that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, it is utterly irrelevant to the actual content of the issue, which is a direction we've seen Marvel moving further and further lately over the last year. And I wonder to what extent this one is the result of failure of planning and to what extent it's a deliberate misdirect, because there are so many twists and so many change-ups in this story arc.
Yeah, and so along those lines, spoiler warning, there's really no way to talk about this issue without talking about a lot of really big stuff that happens. So if you want to be surprised and read it on your own, click to the next review in this video.
Yeah, and we're not only going to be spoiling this issue, we're going to be spoiling the story that leads up to it. So if you haven't been following Uncanny and you want to go into it fresh, again, click on.
Yeah, so very brief recap. There was a mutant named Matthew Malloy. Xavier was keeping his powers in check while Xavier was alive. Now he's not. Now we have this omnipotent mutant doing a lot of really messed up stuff and having just killed Cyclops, along with S.H.I.E.L.D., Cyclops, Magic, and Emma Frost.
Yeah, to explain fully, S.H.I.E.L.D. killed Cyclops and Magic.
Yeah.
Matthew killed Emma.
But it's a really messed up situation. And in this issue, Matthew kills everybody. Like, all of the X-Men. And for me, like, it's really devastating, the scene where it happens, but it also was what made it very clear that, you know what, this cannot stick. We already know time travel's involved in this story, and there's no way this continuity would stand.
Well, we already knew that this couldn't stick because of what we've seen in Avengers titles that have flash forwards where Cyclops is, alive.
That too.
We knew that this wasn't going to stick, and now we find out how it's not going to, which is specifically that Eva Bell, Tempest, goes back in time, grabs Charles Xavier and makes him fix it. Specifically makes him go back in time and make sure that Matthew Malloy's parents never meet.
Now, what I like about this is it's hugely morally compromised to the point where Xavier erases it having happened from his own mind. And that's what we're seeing a lot of ever since Bendis took over, ever since the original 5 X-Men came from the past to the present. And we've also seen that the time stream is getting more and more fractured as parallel universes collide, and I think this works well as a lead-up to Secret Wars, which is basically the consequences of all this meddling with time and space and reality.
To what extent there is one, this is also the end of the Cyclops arc that started with Uncanny X-Men number 1. This volume.
Honestly, it's the end of the arc that started with Schism, if you look at it a certain way.
Maybe, but very, very definitely, at least with that point, and with AVX.
And so, yeah, at the end of this issue, there's no more Xavier School. Cyclops, leading his own revolutionary school, it's done. And he walks away. And yes, I know everything's sort of wrapping up in preparation for Secret Wars, but still, damn.
I am increasingly convinced that they're going to kill adult Cyclops in Secret Wars.
Yeah, I think they probably will, and that makes me sad, but at the same time, that could be the direction the story needs to go for it to be a good story.
Well, and it's, superhero comics. It's a revolving door. So my main hope is that if they do it well.
Yeah.
I feel bad saying that, but...
Anyway, yeah, so this issue is basically the climax of everything we've seen going on for a while, and in my opinion, it really, really does right by what it is, by its role. This is the explosive end to a story, good resolution, it's very satisfying, it's shocking. I think
except for one point.
Yeah.
Because the whole marriage to Mystique thing just...
Xavier being married to
arbitrarily.
Mystique. Yeah, that was
That's gone
weird.
now, maybe, sort of. It doesn't come up in his will.
Yeah, but regardless, pretty excellent end of the story to the point where I kind of wonder what the next couple issues of Uncanny are going to be, because this is such a good, neat wrap-up.
Well, there are a couple different directions it could go, and one of the obvious ones, I think, is Tempest, who's become a lead character in her own right in this title.
It's true.
That definitely hits its climax in this issue.
Yeah, well, a couple issues to go. I know we have Ilyana and Kitty fighting some monsters next time around, which is going to be great. But we'll see. Anyway, Good stuff. This book has been one to follow since it launched. This is no exception.
Next up, we have Chapter 3 of The Black Vortex. That's Legendary Star-Lord number 9, written by Sam Humphries, penciled by Paco Medina, inked by Juan Velasco, and colored by David Curiel. You know, it's okay. It's good. Black Vortex is a fun crossover, but it's not one with a lot of substance. I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. The writing is fun. The writing's pretty on point. I mean, Humphries is a really good writer. The art's really solid. The art on all of the Guardians books has been so good lately.
Yeah, it's got this good sort of cartoony, exciting space opera quality, which is exactly what it should have.
Yeah, and the story's fun. So the Black Vortex is this not exactly Siege Perilous fancy mirror that turns people into the idealized super fighter, kind of evil versions of themselves. And that may or may not, I'm becoming increasingly convinced that this story is leading to apocalypse.
I hope so. I mean, with Secret Wars right around the bend, who knows, but that would be rad. I do love Apocalypse.
I mean, Angel went in it, and spoiler, basically came out as Archangel. Mm-hmm. So...
And no one commented. You'd think people would say...
that was weird.
Oh, well.
Anyway, it's a fun story that's also entirely skippable. Read it if you want to, don't if you don't.
Next we have Storm number 8, written as always by Greg Pak, with pencils by Al Barrionuevo, inks by Tom Palmer and Ed Taddeo, and colors by Ruth Redmond. And so yeah, this kind of wraps up the story that we've seen going on with Storm as an outlaw, thanks to a jerk senator on an airplane and some terrorists. Which, come to think of it, I think I just gave it the best back cover blurb for the upcoming trade. Marvel, call me. Anyway.
That's not actually a blurb. That's back cover copy.
Well, whichever. I'm contributing is the point.
It's an important distinction.
Okay. I missed you. Like, talking action figure Cyclops never corrects my incorrect use of terms.
He should. He's an imperfect action figure.
He just says, optic blast fire.
I think he says a couple other things.
Yeah, well, regardless.
He makes it up. He makes a sort of noise, too.
Well, anyway,
he's versatile.
Storm number 8 is the point. So, this issue's... It's alright. I was kind of expecting more. I mean, there is some cool stuff. Like, at one point, Storm is doing, like, a Legend of Korra style breathing bubble underwater. And, but I find that this book is kind of like all new X-Factor, in that when it's like really character-based and really personality-based, it's great. When it's more action-oriented, it's okay.
Wow, that's, I like this book, and I don't like all new X-Factor, so there's that.
I'm not saying it's a bad book, don't get me wrong. I think it's a very good book, but I think where it excels is not what this issue focuses on.
That's true. This issue is wrapping up a lot of plot. It's wrapping up a lot of conspiracy plot rather than character plot.
Mm-hmm. That being said, I think it knows something about Storm, which is also something to know about Superman that we recently mentioned in our podcast, which is how you fight Superman is not with the punchy because he's going to win, but it's with making a situation where he can't save everyone. And that's what we see here as Aurora confronts the big bad.
I should point out that we cribbed that directly from Glenn Weldon, who is the expert on Superman.
Yes, but I think the principle stands. So it's cool. I'm looking forward to whatever happens after, hopefully being a little more character-focused, because when the book does that, it is incredibly good. The issue, it's fine. You should certainly be reading this title, but this is not the strongest issue in the series.
Yeah, and this is one of the titles that's going to be continuing, right?
It's going to continue at least somewhat into Secret Wars, but beyond the May solicits, we don't know yet.
I'm really glad to see that. Pak is a writer who, when he is on, is really on. Mm-hmm. And seeing him have more of a chance to establish that precedent is something I'm really optimistic about, and something that I think speaks well of the Marvel lineup in general right now. Next up is Wolverines number 7, written by Charles Soule, drawn by Kris Anka, colored by Matthew Wilson. Oh man, I really liked this issue, and I liked this issue largely because it featured one of my favorite characters in prime form.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, let me tell you about Mystique, kids.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you how Mystique is the best secret agent ever, and also a stone-cold bitch, and also super in love with Destiny, and also more badass than every other Wolverine knockoff put together times 2.
Yeah, and this issue, she shines. Because, okay, so this is a great, like, heisty, secret agent-y, betrayal-y book, and who's better at betrayals than Mystique? How about nobody? One ever? Yeah, it's great.
And also, bringing Kris Anka on this issue, because this is a weekly book, so tons of artists, was such a good move, because this one is all about bitchface, and Kris Anka is the undisputed master.
Yeah, him doing Mystique with her sort of, like, disdainful, I did it 35 minutes ago, kind of, I can't do that at all, can you?
No, it's slightly mouth open, it's asymmetrical, I can't.
Well, anyway.
It's in the eyes, too, so obviously I can't. But seriously, I would buy a book that was just Kris Anka draws 22 pages of attractive people judging you. I would buy that book and I would like it.
So anyway, Wolverines #7.
Or 22 pages of attractive people, some of whom are probably judging you, is fantastic. It's really secret agenty. If you are a Mystique fan, this right here, so good. So spot on, exactly what I want to see from this character.
Yeah, and I feel like it's over the last few issues, this book has turned into what really works for it. It seems like it took it a little while to find its voice. It was sort of fluctuating around with how it felt, and now it's just great. Oh, also, I wanted to say, so Shogun, the main character's name is Shogun. I figured it out because he was sharp, and now he's possessed by Ogun. So
you just figured that out?
Yes, but it's cool.
Love you. I love this book too, but I love you more. Which is good because marrying a comic is still illegal in most states.
So far. So now we'll attempt to regain some dignity with Magneto #15, written by Cullen Bunn, with art by Gabriel Hernandez Walta and colors by Jordi Belair.
It's adorable how you think that we had any dignity to lose to begin with.
A little.
No.
Oh. Well, anyway. This is, as I'm sure comes as no surprise if you've heard our previous reviews, a good issue, because it's a good series with consistently good issues. So this basically wraps up the Magneto vs. S.H.I.E.L.D. arc, which has been building up for quite a long time, and it's kind of beautiful. One thing that I think it really emphasizes well is that Magneto, yes, we've seen him as this big grandiloquent villain with a big billowing cape and loud voices.
I feel like you should have had a cape for those gestures.
I feel like I should have a cape for most gestures.
I wish that we had video editing software that let us do anything post-production.
Patreon.
Use your imaginations, viewers.
Yes. Anyway, we've seen him that way before, but we've also seen him just very quiet and subtle and deliberate. And this issue mostly has that, and it works well because it really manages to sell that just kind of grandiloquent villain is right there.
Yeah, this is a Magneto who is brutally efficient. This is not Dark Torture Magneto. This is Magneto who knows what he needs to get done and does it and walks away.
I mean, that being said, there's certainly some dark torture implied because Cullen Bunn's Magneto is a very damaged individual, but he's also an incredibly competent, even-handed, smart character.
And he's been saving all of his snappy one-liners for this moment.
Yeah. It's some really good stuff. The colors are really beautiful, as they've often been in this book. When he's captured by S.H.I.E.L.D., there's this wonderful gray glowing blue that's very clinical, and things just get sort of messier and messier as they go to hell.
As previously, Jordi Belair does a great job distinguishing flashbacks without making it heavy-handed.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it's like the strongest of the issues of the series, but it certainly is very solidly good. Good wrap up for this arc. Sounds like Magneto's going to be another one of the books that continues into Secret Wars, at least for a time. And I'm looking forward to every issue of it. I would love it if they kept the same creative team post Secret Wars if the book still exists. I don't know if they will, but I never want to stop reading this book.
So, Miles, what's our issue of the week?
I think that's going to have to be Uncanny X-Men #31. We both really, really enjoyed this issue. It's the last issue of an arc, but it's a very fitting both climax and denouement. Some really serious stuff happens that makes me desperate to find out what happens next. Always a successful thing in an issue.
And some very, very long-awaited catharsis.
Yeah, it's just a solidly good issue. It's what I wanted it to be. Can't really complain. Rachel, so what's our panel of the week?
Well, as I mentioned in the Wolverines review, I feel like it would be remiss not to take this moment and highlight a moment of perfect, pure Kris Anka bitchface, paired with really superlative dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
This is from Wolverines #7, and just look.
Look at that. I wish I could do that. Also be blue. I kind of wish I could be blue.
We all wish that we could do those things, Miles. None of us can. And that's why Mystique is the best, and Kris Anka is the best, and he should draw angry, sneering, pretty people all the time.
So we're all set for this week. Thanks for watching.
If you like what you've seen here, please check out our podcast, Rachel and Miles Explain the X-Men. New episodes go up every Sunday at rachelandmiles.com, also on iTunes and Stitcher. And this week, we were going to be covering a whole bunch of issues of Uncanny X-Men.
But as we talked about it became clear that we just kept talking about number 198, Life, Death 2 by Chris Claremont and Barry Windsor Smith. So we focus on that issue and spin that off into sort of a larger discussion of Storm as a character.
The podcast and what you're seeing here, everything we do is entirely listener supported. If you want to join the folks who make this stuff possible by becoming one of our Patreon subscribers, you can do that at the link below. Thank you so much to everyone who's already subscribing. You are awesome. You make this work.
And with that, we will see you next time.
No, look, it's just the upper lip curled just a little bit.
What are you saying?
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's you don't want to twist your whole face. So like it's a really subtle thing. It's just like,
man, I can't do subtle. Not like... You're way better at this.
Yeah, but I can't do the eyebrows because my sunglasses cover them.
Huh.
It's... Yeah, keep practicing.
One day.
The lipstick helps.